So, all right, good afternoon. This is Phil Resch, and today, what we're going to do is focus a little bit on process. So, we spent some time last couple weeks talking about marketing, how it can add value to your practice. And today, what we're going to really do is focus on some of the nitty-gritty stuff because in the insurance industry, it's always nice to show pretty illustrations. People get excited for it, but then they forget that we have to underwrite. We also have to get that through the process. So, my goal here today is to help show you guys when you have some of those hard to place cases, what is available at your fingertips to get offers to then submit to the carrier so you don't have to go from one carrier to the next carrier to the next carrier to the next carrier. Because what does that do? That impacts the client's medical information bureau. It impacts time and it impacts your client's patience, really. So if I could show you a way to get a bunch of quotes in a very short period of time, that's what we're looking for here. Now, a lot of times we have a lead horse or a lead company we go with, whether it's AIG Corbridge, North American, Symetra, National Life Group, whoever. You can still submit to them first. Now, the beauty of what I'm going to show you is that if things don't come back the way you want them to, we can shop the market to give your client that satisfaction that they're looking for. And so underwriting is probably one of the biggest and most important things that we have to always look at from the standpoint of how do we help our clients best. And so if I show you here, we log into the 3Mark site. Now, one of the reasons why I love working with 3Mark so much is the staff that they have. So not only do we have built-in case management, we also have a built-in underwriter and underwriting team. So if I log in here, I'm now going to be logged into the main page. And one of the biggest and most important things is what we call X-ray. Because if we go to underwriting and we go to underwriting and impaired risk, as I've shown in other presentations, you can look up specific carrier information like carrier specific underwriting guidelines. So if someone says to me, Phil, I need to understand the financial underwriting for one of my clients, well, we can do that here. You can look up underwriting guidelines per carrier. Some will have it right there. Some will actually just have it in underwriting guidelines. But either way, you have it available here so you can check the carriers. Or if you want a spreadsheet, you can use the IntelliSheets, which will once again show you, say for example's sake, who has accelerated underwriting. And I hit open in Excel, or I can view the carriers. Either way, if I open it up in Excel, what you'll find is, I'm trying to stall as it gets up here. It'll show you all the non-medical carriers or accelerated underwriting opportunities. You can print it out, you can save it, but it'll give you everything you're looking for in one spot. So you have this at your fingertips. Now, once again, as I mentioned, if I have a list of people who, uh, a client who doesn't quite come in, the category of super preferred, and I want to shop that, if I go back to tools and resources and I click on X-ray, we click here, and now we're in the system. So if you haven't gotten this set up yet, you could work with Sandra Hernandez. I think her information is not, well, if you need it, just email me. But in here, what we can do is we can look up different opportunities or create a situation where we'll find out how a client will be impacted based on underwriting. So if I say, let's go with good old Phil Resch, 12, 22, 81, and I'm looking for $1 million in term. Now, if I do nothing and I just click on search underwriting because I gave nothing, it's like garbage in, garbage out. And they just have my date of birth, and then everyone's going to give me preferred best. It's always nice to see that, but as we all know, I am not a preferred best. So if we go back to the case overview, or if we go to the questionnaires, so you see here where it says next section. So we enter in information, 6'1", and I'll just say I wish I was about 250 pounds, and the chest exceeds the waist. Yes, no. I'll say yes. And then we hit next section and we go through all these questions here. Have you ever used tobacco products? Yes, it'll pop up with all these different questions. Will test negative for nicotine? Yes or no? That's important. Ever smoke cigarettes? No. Cigars? Yes. Pipe? Yes. Tobacco? Because there are some carriers that will give you non-tobacco even if you have a positive nicotine, but I don't smoke, so I'm going to put no. Next section. Both my parents are still alive. If they weren't, they would say, did they die of a certain disease? Because some carriers work better with certain diseases versus others. Brother, no, he's still alive. Sister, still alive. Next section. And if you don't know information, that is fine. This is a tentative idea. So if for some reason you have a client who thinks they're super preferred, but they have diabetes or other things, this can help you substantiate your offer that might not have been um, taken if you didn't substantiate it with other carriers agreeing with your lead carrier. So if you don't know something, you can skip it. It'll just be something that you have to do on the back end, like when you do the actual medical exam. This does not replace paramedical exams, just an FYI. And MVR details, so any motor vehicle details, any reckless driving, DUIs, anything on that standpoint, you can put that all in there. Aviation, do I fly planes? Do I scuba dive? What happens? People are like, well, why would they ask that? Those are what you call avocation risks. So if you do dangerous things, that can add risk called flat extras or even temporary extras. So they want to know if you do things like that. So if, let's say, for example's sake, you fly planes and you lie on the application because you don't want the flat extra, which increases your premium, and you die flying a plane, the carrier can deny the claim. So once again, it is important to be honest on the applications. There are carriers that will have aviation exclusion riders to waive those extra charges, but not always. Medical conditions. This is probably why you would actually do this is for certain medical conditions. So let's say, for example's sake, one of the bigger ones is type 2 diabetes. Now, because I checked the box, it will add another section for me to answer questions, right? So a lot of you have emailed me in the past asking me, hey, my client has an A1C of 8. What can I get? Well, when was the date of diagnosis? I always respond back, date of diagnosis, any complications, what do they currently be treated with, and the installation units. So we can figure out January 2020, and the A1C is 7, complications no, currently treated yes, and usually it's like 500 milligrams. And then you can go to case summary because we have nothing else in here. This is where you can add additional information, like, client also has a CPAP machine and is fully compliant. Client, had cancer 10 years ago, and then you'd have to specify what type of cancer. But all of this, let's just say, and is compliant, not complaint, compliant. Now, this additional information will not take into effect when I hit search underwriting. Spelled compliant wrong, I guess. But anyway, it's going to load up here and it's going to take the information. And now I've got two carriers that'll tell me that I can qualify for standard in table 2, prudential table 3, and then everyone else is like, I don't know. I don't know. But this does not include the CPAP that I put into the additional information. So this is where you'll want to go over here and go to messaging. So if I click on messaging, you'll see I click the drop down and it has the case manager at 3 mark, and it'll basically type up everything here. And what she'll do is she'll send it out to all of those carriers to get responses. And what I would say the responses look like, I'll share with you here. That's what I sent to them. So okay, so you'll see here this one, female 45, 1.5 million, a little heavy, no tobacco, and then has some asthma. And we looked, and banner, tentative standard, tentative standard, tentative standard. So now we go back in and we run the illustrations based on what you're seeing here, because what I would say is that if you had a carrier that had, say, a table 2, like AIG, for example's sake, has really dirt cheap term. So if AIG had a table 2 and say Prudential had a standard, AIG may be cheaper than Prudential because of the way the pricing is set up. So that's why it's always important to find out what the risk class is and still run the numbers. Now, this will help you because then you can go back to your client and say, hey, I know you think you're standard non-tobacco. I know you think you're preferred best, but everyone in the industry is saying that you're around a standard non-tobacco rate. Here are the numbers, so it's more of a reality check, and then you can have a more educated conversation. And so when you use this, it helps you provide more credibility to your client, because I can't even count how many times I've talked to agents who said, well, Phil, I have to show preferred plus to my client, otherwise they're not going to take the policy. But when you think about it, if you can run these quotes in advance so your client has a better understanding, is it better to get an application in and not paid and impact their MIB? Or is it better to set the expectation up front so you can have an easier conversation on the back end? So this is the kind of stuff that we can do. If, for example's sake, you had a situation where you sent me lab work, what I would do is I would send that off to, we have an internal underwriter, and I was sent lab work from the internal underwriter. I sent it over to them, and they basically shopped everybody. Here's the offers. They gave me an Excel sheet, few table 2s, waiting for Columbus. So we get back table C from Columbus, but it's a permanent policy, and they have standard through table shave from C, B, and A. It'll automatically go up to standard. So as I got a note back, run with that, and we have submitted the application because the client was okay with the premium. So some of the dirty work was done up front. Now all I have to do is order a paramedical exam, and the client just has to answer the questions of the Part B with the paramedical examiner, and that's it. So it kills some of the stuff that you have to do on the back end because you already did it, and it saves your client and you some time because now you don't have to go to your second best carrier, then third best, and find out that none of them are going to take your risk. So we use this here to simplify the process and make it easier for you. Like, here we had a situation where a lot of the clients need more info, and then we went with the table C from Columbus. So once again, they're more than willing to help out with some harder to place cases. And so to kind of go back here, once again, for those who kind of maybe jumped in late, you log into 3mark.com, you log in under underwriting resources, underwriting and impaired risk, you click on that, or it's actually right there. X-ray pre-underwriting tool assessment, and then you click here. If you have not gotten this yet, we have Sandra Hernandez at 3Mark who can set you up. Just email me and I'll get you in the system so you have your own X-ray and you can do these qualifying approaches for your client. But that's all I really wanted to share for today. Nothing too crazy, but wanted to at least provide a value proposition here